It's the week 2 edition of the Coach's Corner here on Rivalry Family Media. Great to have you along with us here for another week of Coach's Corner on RFM. Todd Robbins joined as always by Leominster High School head coach Devin Gates. And as we recap a 27-12 opening night loss to Fitchburg for Leominster, Blue Devils fall to 0-1 in the early season. Fitchburg improves their record to 1-0 with their first win versus Leominster since Thanksgiving 2017. Coach, tough loss to this team in a 27-12 matchup. There were moments where you had to be looking at your team going, wow, here's some great evidence of development. And then there were moments where you were like, okay, there's some things that you would maybe expect to see on opening night we're going to have to improve on. But all in all, I think the one thing the score doesn't dictate is just how close this game truly was all the way till the very end.
Sure. Yeah. No, it was a really good battle time. Fitchburg is a really good football team, and they're doing things the right way there. So hats off to them. They made the plays when they needed to. And we struggled to do that when we needed to make a play on a short down and stay on the field with whether it be third and short, fourth and short. We made some little mistakes that turned it up, at key moments. And that's the thing with our team now. We have to learn to win those moments. And kind of persevere through that stuff. And, it certainly was a learning experience for us. I'm proud of the effort that we had out there. We had a lot of guys play a lot of plays out there, both sides of the ball. We definitely saw some things that we were excited about. And we're looking to develop further as we go along for the year. And there's definitely some fixable things that we need to take care of that are going to result in pay off big dividends for us if we can figure that out. So that's what the goal is this week with practice, fixing those little mistakes, having guys play with more confidence and being more physical. That's what we need to do.
As you went back and reviewed the game film and looked at the different things that kind of progressed throughout the night, if you were to say, okay, these are the thing that was most pleasing to my eye, and this is the thing that I absolutely know we need to go back and fix, what would you put in each category?
Well, I think our effort was there. We didn't back down. And, even when we did have, our back against the wall, we went down, early. And, the kids kind of, I think they kind of fell into like kind of maybe a here we go again from the spring. They were able to dig themselves out of that a little bit and make some stops and make some good plays. So our perseverance there, not exactly where we want to be. We got to make sure that we don't, our body language is going to be positive. We can't, be writing ourselves off and saying poor us when we're only down a score in the second quarter. That's something we can't do. But they rallied in the second half. I really just want the kids to understand what they're capable of, because we're a lot better football team than we showed on Thursday, and the kids know that, and we're working this week to do that. I was pleased with the effort. I think just some mental mistakes on block assignments, where to fit in with some of our defensive assignments. Stuff that we hadn't shown at all during practice. We went out there and the moment was too big, for some guys, but it's certainly something as coaches that we got to make sure that we're coaching up better with that, and that they understand fully what their job is. So, like I said, they can go out there and play with more confidence. That's really what we need to do. So definitely, some fixable things here. It wasn't for lack of effort. It wasn't for lack of trying. It's certainly things that we can address in practice and work towards fixing, and definitely come out, with a better understanding of what we're trying to do for next week.
Let's tease out a little bit the thing that I think may have caused that feeling, of course, of the here we go again that you were referencing moments ago. That has to be, I saw some shades of maybe the Shrewsbury game from the spring with penalties that put you out of circumstances that could have resulted in points, or just points that were left on the board. What are those moments? What are those things that you can do to help clean that up as you guys move forward?
Well, we got to finish everything. In finishing, when I talk about finishing plays, we got to cross the goal line and give the ball to the ref. We can't rely on, or think something as little as putting a finger up for a half a second is going to not result in a penalty. Obviously that stuff has been called against us, so we need to not do that. That's been addressed with our team. They know better than that. So when we talk about finishing, it's crossing the goal line, giving the ball to the ref, and then getting ready to play the next play. Also finishing runs, finishing our plays, finishing our tackles, finishing our blocks. There were too many times I saw in the game where, we blocked like we would block in practice, and it not finish our play to the whistle. We need to make sure that we're finishing all that stuff. So, I mean, that's the stuff that we got to work on there too. And, that's my biggest message to the team this week is we really got to work on finishing all of our plays.
Despite those circumstances, I think this is the thing that stands out to me. Despite circumstances that took points down off the board, flags that ultimately hurt at crucial moments, or a lapse in judgment and not quite making it all the way to the end zone, you still found yourself in a circumstance where you guys were neck and neck, Fitchburg and Leominster, to the point where you reached the very end, and then suddenly something like an Anthony Oquendo, which was kind of like taking your medicine. It was just, here comes some more, here comes some more, here comes some more. And they were basically daring your team to stop them. And unfortunately, a talented back in Anthony Oquendo was kind of, if you will, cosmically due for his rivalry moment. And Thursday night was his night.
Yeah. Going back to those plays too, that we had, leaving points on the board or having penalties call, some points back. It's, those things are deflating, but our guys, if they've learned anything over the last, year, it's how to persevere through that stuff. And we talked a lot about being in the moment. This is about us, not about anybody else, not about the refs. It's about us playing to our ability, and that's what they need to understand. But then going back to, Oquendo and Fitchburg's offensive line, I mean, they did a great job of leaning on us all night long and making us come on, and they were patient. They ran the same stuff over and over again until we stopped it. And, we made some big plays. We made some plays here and there. But when it came to, having to stop and make it off the field, we couldn't make that play.
When you look at the performance of some of the newcomers, some of the guys who we said, you always have that dichotomy, right? And I talk about this all the time about this series, and it bears out historically. You have the names historically that going into the game, are going to either be impact players or going to be players by which you could look at as a bellwether of how the game is going on both sides. And then you have guys who are all of a sudden we're going to know, are going to play, but maybe aren't considered the ones who are going to make their stamp on the rivalry moments. And I think the guy we have to talk about first is the performance early, particularly of Riley Costa, who was a guy who we knew would make a significant contribution, but I don't know if on anybody's score sheet other than maybe his own, he might have predicted an early turnover that results in an interception to stop Fitchburg's first offensive drive. Follow that up shortly on the heels later by a scoop and score. It certainly has to make him awfully pleased in the grand scheme of things. And it's got to be something for you that's like, look, there's a guy who's contributing that we knew would make contributions, but was making big contributions on the scoreboard as well.
Yeah, I'm happy for Riley. Riley is a grinder. He's a gritty kid. Despite his size, he's not the biggest kid in the world, but he doesn't mind, sticking his nose in there and getting dirty and being physical. And for him to have those plays, I mean, that's a result of him doing that, right? Being able to get in there and get dirty and make things happen. So it's been a long time coming for him. I know he's kind of got a long road to get to this point, and sitting behind some guys who have been, guys that have been, on the roster, that just graduated last year. He's had to kind of play second fiddle to some of those guys, and he paid his dues last year, getting thrown in at safety, and not the best situation for him in terms of coming in as a second stringer or a third stringer, and without a ton of experience. But he learned from that, and he got better from it. And we're seeing that pay off now. So happy for Riley. Looking forward to see what he can do moving forward too.
No question about that. And of course, that would be the name that maybe we learned throughout the night and added and stitched among the history and the tapestry of this series. Then there were the names that you had kind of cued us to that we were going to expect to see perform very well. One of those we got to talk about is Ricky Encarnacion's performance. He was the all everything back offensively, defensively. He just seemed to find his way into places that could significantly help this football team.
Ricky's a smart kid. He's a smart football player. And, we asked him to do a lot on Thursday night because, we feel like he can handle it. He's only a junior, but, he's kind of heady beyond his years football wise. And, he's had a rough go the last 2 years. I mean, he was injured first going into his freshman year. And then during the spring, he suffered an early injury where he's only able to play, part of week 1 against Shepherd Hill, and then he was out for the season. So excited for Ricky as well too. I mean, he's going to grow and get better as we go along here, but he's got a huge ceiling, And I look for more big things from Ricky, both offensively and defensively, as the season goes on.
Let's talk about this concept. I think all of us have had our chance to postscript this first kickoff classic, this first Thursday night meeting in week number 1. It was something that obviously we were excited about. It was built up, kind of trying to increase the buzz, not just because Fitchburg and Leominster didn't get to play in the 2020-2021 school year and in that wedge football season, but because it was bringing something new and something interesting and another wrinkle to add to the depth and lore of this series. I came out of Thursday saying it did exactly what it was intended to. Yes, please sign us up for a yearly, edition of this, plus Thanksgiving, being a part of it on the field, being a part of the coaching staff. How did you walk away post-scripting the entire experience, even if on the wrong end?
Yeah, I thought it was, an electric night. It really was. I think the crowds, both sides were great. It felt like, and maybe not everybody will be happy with me for saying this, but it felt like community. It felt like bringing both communities together in a hard-fought football game. There wasn't any, obviously there's the rivalry, there's a little bit of the chippiness, but at the end of the day, everybody was giving each other hugs and making sure it's these guys are close. These guys are close, and as much as people want to make it out to be a hate thing, it's not like that. Yeah, they want to beat each other. They want to beat each other real bad. But the overall vibe of the whole entire night was that of community coming together, in a positive manner. Two teams competing extremely hard, and I thought the whole vibe of the night was very positive. And how could you not look forward to a Thanksgiving game after the kind of atmosphere that you had that Thursday night? I mean, obviously we're not there yet. We got week 2 to worry about here, and that's the only thing we're worried about. But if I'm a spectator who was at that game, I'd be pretty excited moving forward.
If you're thinking about the greater good and the overall picture, I think the community embraced this kind of series. We talked a lot about the pent-up demand. It's been an economic phrase that has been thrown around in regard to what's going on with the pandemic and the marketplace. There was a great example. Number 1 was seeing that crowd come out, given the weather conditions that were predicted, that were delivered, that happened, and yet both communities still showed up. And I think, had you gotten Friday night's weather on Thursday, I think we really would have been talking about something incredibly special. And I look forward to, along with you, seeing that develop and how that does set the table somewhere down the road, because as if the collision course wasn't already going on, it has certainly been primed for what's going to come at the other end of a hard-fought football season. So we're certainly looking forward to that. And I want to tease back out one other thing that you mentioned, because it was something that stood out to me watching post-game, especially I think maybe when we put it into context of the conclusion of how the 2019 game had to end. And when you looked out over that field, it felt much more like a college or even a professional environment, in the sense that because there were so many pre-existing established relationships, it was more than just the required handshake line that everybody goes through at the conclusion of a high school athletic event. There was a sincere celebration among the peers that were out on the field of each other's effort that was part of the game. And I think that does deserve another minute to be _underlined as a positive as part of this series.
Yeah, I think these kids know how hard each team works, so they respect that. They're not, they're old enough to know what goes into the season, and I think that there was a lot of mutual respect there of how tough it is to prepare and how tough it is in this rivalry, and that's what I came away feeling like. There was a mutual respect for the team of how hard it was fought, and I thought our guys did a great job. At the end, hey, you guys came in here and you beat us. And we can get better. But there wasn't any of that trash talk or anything like that at all. So it really had a good. Again, we're on the wrong side of it. Don't get me wrong here, but it definitely had that feeling that you're looking for of a really good, clean, hard-fought rivalry, and I thought our kids did a good job, as well as Fitchburg kids, at the end of that, showing respect for each other.
Sets the table 27-12. Fitchburg, a winner in week 1 of action. Red Raiders improved to 1-0, 68, 61, and 10 all time is Leominster's lead in the record, but Fitchburg improves their all-time record to 61, 68, and 10 all time in this series. Again, first win since Thanksgiving 2017, third win in the series since 2010, and that included a couple of playoff matchups over the last decade plus between these two communities as well. Looking forward to the 140th meeting of these two teams coming up on Thanksgiving Thursday. But in the meantime, as Coach Gates alluded, a whole lot of football between now and then, and we'll turn our attention to week 2 of action. Leominster and Doherty on deck coming up at the conclusion of this week. But Coach, before we get there and preview Leominster Doherty, I want to stop a second, talk a little bit about broadly what we saw across the league this week. Of course, you guys had kind of the benefit of playing on opening night with no other game going on in town and a chance to sit back and observe everything that went on throughout the weekend. And I think concluding Friday night, even before we got to Saturday's games, I was most interested as I looked across the landscape, not just of Leominster's opponents, but across the landscape of the league. We saw a lot of teams that maybe perhaps we thought would be dominating football teams that played very close football games, or in a couple of circumstances, teams that we thought were going to be cream of the crop take pretty good thumpings in series that to me were quite frankly shocking. And maybe it was just because I hadn't seen what had happened to those teams since 2019's football season, but there were some shocking things in that score sheet.
Yeah, there were. What I like to see, with the new statewide format, there were schools branching out. You had like Wachusett playing in Franklin. You had Shrewsbury playing in Andover. They both lost, both hard-fought games. Franklin's a really good football program. They play in the Hockomock, and they're in Division I as well. And they do things the right way. And so does Wachusett. And I think it's two tough teams that are battling each other there. And it's a good week 1 matchup. Same thing with Shrewsbury. I know Shrewsbury fought back to make it a closer game. It really made it a little dicey down the end there for Andover, and they held on to win. But Shrewsbury showed some guts coming back against Andover. And then our opponent Doherty and Algonquin. The Doherty's been they had a lot of success against Algonquin and against most of Central Mass over the last couple of years, and they had a lot of turnover, but they're still a good football team, and Algonquin looked like they improved a lot too. So definitely some surprises there.
A couple of teams that stood out on the slate offensively. One you'll see later on, the 53 points hung by Shepherd Hill in a win over Westboro certainly headlined the sheet for me. And then you got to speak to the 41 points put up by Grafton in a game against Neshoba. That's certainly, again, 2 storied football programs that maybe Shepherd Hill certainly been on Leominster's schedule now routinely for a while, but Grafton, a team that runs the periphery of this, league, plays a lot in Southern Worcester County, stands out as being an incredibly talented football team coming out of week 1.
A very talented football team. They play hard. They're a tough group of kids. Their quarterback Tyler Diamond can run. He can throw. He had a great season in the spring as a junior, and he's the real deal. And Neshoba is not a pushover. They're always a good football program, and they're coached the right way. I know Coach Andy LeBlanc. We went to school together, and I know that he's been the defensive coordinator for a long time there, and now the head coach. That's a tough football team. So that score was surprising, especially how quick they got up on Neshoba too. I think it was 27-0 in the first quarter. So Grafton is the real deal. They're a good football program. I know they played Fitchburg High tight last year as well too. Very close game. I think it's just a 1-score game and maybe an overtime. So Grafton's been doing things the right way, and they have a good football program down there.
As I heard it termed coming out of this weekend, you have a lot of teams that are tied for first, and you have a lot of teams tied for second as we end week 1. Nobody has played their way in or played their way out of a statewide playoff in just 1 week of action. There are a lot of teams that find themselves in just one of 2 categories, but with only 8 weeks on this schedule and only 8 weeks to get yourself and wriggle your way into the top 16 of a 32 team division. How much pressure does that put on the individual teams, particularly the teams like yourself and Doherty that come out of week 1 0-1 and aren't happy about it?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing for our guys coming off, what was, it always is a highly emotional, passionate game, right? And that loss, what we don't want to do is have that, have Fitchburg beat us twice 2 weeks in a row. And that's not what we want. So, for us, it was being able to put that behind us, not push the panic button, and kind of dial back in, have them see the mistakes, watching film, have them see the mistakes that they made, and know that we're a good football program if we execute things the right way. So it's not looking at the big picture for us. It's taking it one practice at a time, one rep at a time, as cliche as it sounds, 1 week at a time. But that is honestly the only way we can look at it. If we start looking at the big picture and worrying how things are falling out for other people, that doesn't do us any good. We have to control what we can control, and that's all we need to worry about. So, again, we're going to take it 1 week at a time and play it from there. We're not going to worry about it. I think we have a really good football program, really good football team, and really talented kids. And we're going to try to put something together here. But again, we got to be in the top half of Division II. And do I feel like we belong there and we'll have that team at the end of when all's said and done? I do. I believe in our guys. But we need to take it one step at a time here.
As we advance that theory, the ability to look at a game that you've had, and this is always that, I think, interesting balance in football. You give yourself a period of time where you want to review it, reteach, learn from it, and then dump it. It sounds really easy, but how difficult or easy is that type of mindset when you're trying to A, translate that to players, and then B, you've been that player. How difficult is it to advance your thinking beyond the experience you just had?
Well, I think film is huge for our guys, and something that we weren't able to really do the way we would normally want to do it, in the spring. We watch film virtually, but like you're not there in the room with the guys. It's not like you can, really point out and, have kids see the mistakes all right there, all together, and have to look each other in the eye. Like that stuff doesn't happen. Our guys don't want to let the other players down. So to have that moment in film where guys can be up there in front of their peers and not embarrassing anybody or anything like that at all, but everybody can see like, hey, this is where we need to get better. This is where we screwed up on this play. I think that's a really important tool for us to get better. Because like I said, these are fixable problems, and guys just need to understand, which I don't think is much of a translation from what we're trying to do. We're not reinventing the wheel of what we're doing. We're not putting in new plays. We made things simpler offensively for us for a reason, because we want to go out there and execute. So I think the kids understand that. It's just adapting, fixing those small problems, and having confidence in what we're doing. It's really, I feel like it's that simple for us.
Uniquely, and I think this is one of those moments where you are benefited a little bit by, again, the sport of football globally and the other things that you get to see that happen on a very large stage. And of course, a great example comes in something we talked about in our first edition, and that is, of course, the debut of Mac Jones, the New England Patriots, a difficult loss to the Miami Dolphins yesterday. And the game really hinges itself, or the opportunity perhaps to win and get back into that football game, or put yourself over the top and ahead in that football game that could have led to a win, gets fumbled away at the last moment. Is there sometimes where you can look at some of those experiences, and like you said, you don't want to embarrass individual players, but maybe can look at the larger, more global football picture and say, look, that one guy has got to be feeling awfully terrible, but he can't fix it all by himself. There's a team that's going to have to rally together in order to improve New England's circumstance in the weeks going ahead. Does that help in any way, shape, or form translate what you're trying to do to your team?
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about, the guys being all a piece of the puzzle, right? So unless they're all fitting together in the right spots at the right time, then, if it's one guy, if it's two guys, they can see where things break down. And again, it's not, it's not pointing out one guy and embarrassing one guy. That's not what we're about. It's about teaching, and it's about, being able, like, failure for us is always an opportunity to learn. So the guys need to understand that we're not out here to embarrass our guys. We're not watching film to, put anybody down or make anybody upset, but the guys need to know when mistakes are made, and then we need to grow from them and learn from them. And that's what the whole thing is about. So yeah, to get back to your question, Todd, those certainly, it happens on the highest levels, and guys, and they learn and they get better. So if guys want to, progress and want to win football games, then we need to learn how to execute in those situations when that certain play is dialed up, or when a certain technique or a certain intensity is called for in maybe short yardage situations. Guys need to know what we're asking them to do and then be able to execute it.
The way you were describing it, the thing that crossed my mind now personally, as someone who didn't enjoy math, this would have given me the heebie-jeebies when I was a student, but we'll go with the example just for the sake of conversation. As you look at, when you were in math class, it's something I think people can relate to, when you would make a mistake on an equation or you missed a step along the way, you would review that performance, or the teacher would review and reteach from where in the equation the mistake got made. It's a step-by-step process. So if there is an error in that mistake, there's an error in your calculations, it's impossible to get to the final calculation that you were aiming for in the grand scheme of things, or what is quote unquote the correct answer. So I could see that very similar in what you're describing in this process. You're going through and you're looking at the step-by-step nature of what it takes to execute a play, a series, a drive, etc., and how those pieces fit together. If there is a calculation error, chances are you don't get to the right answer in the end. Learn how to get the calculations right. You find your way to the right answer in the equation.
Yeah, we didn't carry the two a lot on Thursday, so we got to make sure that we are accounting for every number and putting our decimals in the right place. But yes,
I struggled with that myself. But at the end of the day, what can I say?
but it really is, without without making it making light of it, it really is teaching how all those pieces fit together to accomplish the objective of the play. And that's what we worked on a lot of this off season. What are our goals? How do we attain them? How do we reach the objectives that we want? And again, and I got to look in the mirror to see where I went wrong during the week. Why weren't we as prepared as I thought we were going into week one? How do I get better so that they are feeling confident what they're executing? And I think that we're addressing that this week in terms of what we're asking the kids to do for practice, how we're carrying ourselves in practice, and the fact that we're going to run our plays until we run them perfectly. That's just the way it's going to be. The guys need to understand the tempo, the intensity of how in the feel of how these players are going to be in the game, to be able to execute it correctly the way we want them in the game. And that's on myself and the coaching staff to make sure that we create that atmosphere for them during practice.
Certainly now being on the other end of that, I know the teacher holds themselves even more responsible for the lack of the equation getting completed than even they would hold their student accountable to that process, because they feel like they haven't achieved, which is the point that you're ultimately making there as well. Let's turn our attention to this week 2 action. Leominster and Doherty on tap, Foley Stadium, going to be a live environment again, a trip south into what is always an exciting atmosphere. 6:30 kickoff, an important note as well for those that are going to be venturing out a half hour earlier than normal, and we'll get to the particulars with how you could participate in addition to coming on down to Foley Stadium on Friday night. But Coach, let's talk about this matchup between your two teams. Mentioned it a moment ago, you're both coming in at 0-1. Neither one of you certainly happy with that circumstance, and both of you are in a circumstance where you're trying to figure out how do these pieces ultimately fit together. It is a younger Doherty team with some veteran leadership smattered in. Same circumstance that you are. It feels very much like two teams that, although doing things a little bit differently, are going through some of the same shared experiences.
Yeah, it seems that way. Just looking at film and trying to kind of feel our way through at the beginning of the season here too. And Doherty is going to be excited. That's their home opener. They always have a lot of energy. They always have athletes too. So if we're not fitting in where we need to fit in on defense, or if we're not covering where we need to cover, or blocking we need to block, they can make a big play. So again, the pieces need to be in place. We need to make sure that we're accounting for, the most dangerous people on the field, and that we're able to counteract that. But yeah, I mean, Doherty's always going to have athletes down there. Coach McKay, he does a great job. He's a great coach, along with Coach Wallace, the offensive coordinator, who used to be the Shrewsbury head coach. They always have something dialed up. So they're really good at diagnosing film to see where we're weakest, and we got to make sure that we look at our tendencies and we address that. But I think it's going to be a good game against two opponents who are kind of trying to find their way after week 1, like you said.
And that will be the story to see. And of course, for those that are trying to remember and piece together the last time these two teams got together in the Wedge 2020 season, I would expect, although the playbook might look similar, it's important to note, of course, that their star quarterback, that being Noah Calorie, is no longer part of the program. He has graduated. He's moved on with his football career. And so they are trying to find some leadership to run their offense out on the field and try to find maybe a new identity through this process as well. So you're going to see some things as a fan who may follow things along the way. You're going to see some things that have been similar to what Doherty may typically do. And as you alluded to, you're going to see some things that are a little bit different as well.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a new quarterback. And Noah Calorie, had a great career at Doherty, and allowed them to do a lot of stuff, and it was very versatile, running and throwing. This quarterback, the new quarterback, I can't remember his name. I think he was a transfer into Doherty, but he's a senior. He's probably more of a true passer, but he can certainly break the pocket and create outside. Not as big as Noah, but I mean, you're going to see Doherty spread it out like they have in the past, and then. If they want to run the ball a little bit, they might try to get in some I formation and try to run some power, run some ISO, and try to run, right at the heart of our defense too. So they'll mix it up a little bit. It's there. Like I said, they're always going to have the athletes on the outside. So we got to make sure that our coverage is locked up, and that we're, keeping guys in front of us so we can make tackles. I think we match up pretty well athletically, on the back end. At least, looking at, what they did against Algonquin. I think we fit pretty well in the back end of the defense. But yeah, you're going to see some different looks from Doherty, and they'll probably have something that we haven't seen yet. They'll probably throw a wrinkle in there as well too. So we got to expect the unexpected as well.
Certainly one of the places that you either can't coach to fix, or just, kind of dealt what you have, would be in the game of size. And that was, I think, the thing for me looking at the video from their game last week against Algonquin, was just the sheer height advantage. So to say that they have a distinctive height and reach advantage certainly may underscore the point here, but it is not. I mean, we can go reach for any cliche you want. It's not the size of the dog. It's the size of the fight in the dog. We can find all of our cliches that might get the point across. But when you're in a situation in a football game, and this is not basketball by any nature of the situation, but when you do give up height and reach advantage, what does that do to a football game plan?
Well, I mean, you still got to find a way around it. So whether that's, you're going to take what they like to do best. What's their move? What's their, how are they using that height and that size, on the edges? I know, like, their defensive end are pretty tall guys. So they're going to try to get their hands in passive windows. How do we counteract that? How do we account for that? So that's certainly what we're looking at in the game plan too. How do we, what kind of plays do we call where, maybe we can, take that out of the equation. And then, offensively too, if they got guys on the outside that can, go up and get a jump ball, and we have to make sure that we're being aggressive to the ball, and that we're playing jump balls, and that we're making contested, making every catch contested. We have to account for that with either being aggressive or being nagging or just kind of being in the area too. We can't let that height, and that size, go uncontested for us.
As you move your way into, of course, the final preparation, tailoring your game plan and beginning to execute that in practice as soon as tomorrow, tell me, what is the thing that you look at now, still 5 days out from this football game? What are the things that you want to prioritize with your football team? What's going to be the thing early on in this football game that's going to tell you where you are in battling Doherty on Friday night?
Well, I mean, I think we just stepping to our right guys on our offensive blocks. I think there was some confusion in identifying the front. If we can be solid at identifying the front, and we're able to pop some yardage, early with our run game, I think that'll be a good barometer of where we're at. I really just want to see guys stepping down with confidence and, stepping down, for lack of a better term, violently with their blocks. We need to be more aggressive. So if I'm seeing guys executing confidence and stepping with confidence, I'm going to feel pretty good about, where we're at offensively. And then defensively, our communication. We just need to make sure that we're accounting for, when they go split out and then they go spread, or when they go I formation, we got to make sure that we talk and we get guys in the right spots. I think our guys are really good at communicating right now. This is a different animal than Fitchburg, Doherty is. They're going to, try to pass a little bit more and try to, put their guys in space. So we got to be able to make sure that we, cover things up, keep guys in front of us and make tackles.
And that will be where we will turn our attention and get an update from you coming up on Friday night down on the field as part of our K-Zone's countdown to kickoff. As we mentioned, an earlier 6:30 start time. Our countdown will begin at 6 p.m. per usual, followed by that kickoff to follow at 6:30. We'll have that all for you on AM 1280, 105.3 FM, and WPKZstream.com. Our partners at Leominster TV will be along the way as well. They will start their coverage 10 to the bottom of the hour, so 6:20 for the coverage on Leominster TV across Comcast, Verizon, and Leominster.tv for the online streaming. Tune in again next week here on the Coach's Corner here on Rivalry Family Media. No week starts without the Coach's Corner. You get your preview and your post look at the action from the previous week with Leominster High School head coach Devin Gates. Coach, thank you as always. We'll talk to you again next week. For Leominster High School head coach Devin Gates, I am Todd Robbins saying thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to talking to you on Friday night on radio and TV. So long, everybody.